Go ahead and.
Good afternoon, Chairman Fagan and members of the committee. My name is Charles Edelson, E-D-E-L-S-O-N. I'm the Director of Operations for a tiny, in comparison to some of these other, employment program in Albany. Regrettably, I do have some of the numbers that you folks are interested in. I initially thought I would be commenting only on 2925, but I do have a couple of comments that I think would be constructive as to the other bill as well. With respect to 2925, we support the aspirational goal of the disabled individuals earning something that's more of a living wage, something approaching minimum wage. We are, however, a program that has severe financial constraints. We do hold one of these 14C licenses that you've talked about. For such a tiny program that only employs 40 individuals, we apparently have a disproportionate share of the statewide total if that 100 number is to be believed. Out of our 40 individuals, 39 make less than minimum wage. The reason the one person does not is that she operates at like 92% efficiency, and based on prevailing wage and the calculations, she beats it. You should understand the background in the DD field. There's been a big push in Employment First. I think you folks have heard quite a bit about that. There's a great deal of incentivizing in the rate structure, pushing programs towards operating in the community rather than being facility-based. There are some constraints on basically getting clients into the facilities at this point. And so the most common strategy for dealing with that is to somehow shift your facility-based work into being community-based. In our case, we already have a couple community-based programs. We run janitorial and landscaping crews. The facility-based bit has been a shredding crew. We shred confidential documents, but we do it not with the big trucks or the warehouse floors. We do it with smaller machines. But those folks are more severely disabled. Just to give you an idea what's going on, the folks in the janitorial and landscaping arena are typically working at a productivity in the 40 to 60% range. There's some outliers, higher and lower. With respect to the shredding crew, you're dealing with much lower productivity rates, probably in the range of 3 or 5% up to maybe 20%. Part of what we've done is taken people that would have a really rough go in the community setting and said, look, we're going to try to help you out and give you something to do. They don't make very much money. Their productivity rates are shockingly low, but they are in tandem. You should know, just as a bit of background, that under the 14C scheme, employers that hold these licenses have to conduct time studies to determine employee productivity. Each person is given 3 trials, each of which is on a different day. They're given credit for their highest output, and then they're re-rated every 6 months. So this is not a once-in-a-lifetime affair. You should also know that a fair proportion of our workers, especially in the shredding crew, are over 50. I'd say it's more than half. We have one guy who's 79 who claims he's going to work until he's 100. The concept of retirement has utterly no meaning to him. I would note that 2925 imposes a requirement of a minimum wage be paid to all these individuals regardless of productivity. And it sounds like a great idea. It is absolutely unfunded. In a program such as ours, it would cost us $9,000 a month to pay the 40 individuals all at minimum wage. We're already losing money. Losing money at that accelerated pace simply puts us out of business. You could probably calculate how many months we would last. It would probably be on the order of 3 or 4. At that point, we shut down. These people go back to their apartments and group homes, nothing to do. They might be able to get on at other programs, but it's questionable. It's also worth noting that some of the folks came to our program from other programs where they were making minimum wage. They chose ours because they liked it better. they valued other attributes of employment more than simply their wage. With respect to 3248, I did not prepare to address that today, and we've just looked it up while you folks were working on other things. But I have a couple of notes for you. First of all, the scope of this bill exceeds the scope of Senate Bill 555 in two major ways. First of all, 555 only applies to employees that are working on the particular QRF contract under consideration. It does not affect the balance of the workers in the facility. 3248 does. It says all workers of any organization that holds a QRF contract must be paid minimum wage. In our case, our janitorial crews are primarily doing QRF work. And there's no particular provision in this law for hiking up the amount of the contract. You may, in fact, be able to do it. But all the other people would be affected by this with no balancing of the contract provisions for them. And when you start talking about the shredding crew at these fantastically low productivity levels, you're talking about increasing their wages by a factor of, 5 to 20 with no change in their productivity whatsoever, and we have no way to recoup it. The second thing I would note about 3248 is instead of taking everybody up to a minimum wage, it takes them up to a prevailing wage. So it does more. It goes further. So those are my comments. Gladly take any questions at any point.
Just very quickly, you said since you had the numbers, so can you give us the info on kind of what you're kind of,
okay.
those shredding employees, kind of what do they make per hour?
I don't have the exact numbers, but it's going to be working out to be really low. So the more adept people are going to be making on the order of $1 to $1.50 an hour. The less adept, you're probably talking about 25 cents an hour.
And then did you have
that work, by the way, is piece rate, and so you have to work backwards. And make comparisons to what a non-disabled person is able to achieve in the same time period. But it gets you to that end point.
And then did you also have information on your kind of executive salaries?
I can tell you mine. I am the second most highly paid person in the organization, and I make $60,000 a year. My boss makes more than I do, but I don't know the exact number. We are probably the only two people that you would consider executives in nature. The organization employs a total of 13 staff, and that includes direct care workers. And we have about 40 disabled people at any one time.
Okay. Thank you. Representative Rayfield.
Yeah, I just wanted to know a little bit more about the shredding process. So how big are the shredders?
We have two kinds. We have one that's probably vintage 1980 to 90. It's a freestanding unit. It's probably the size of this lectern and perhaps 3 feet wide. And you hand feed papers, and if you try to feed more than about 2 pages at a time, it's likely to jam. And you got to remove all the staples. And so the rate at which work is performed is relatively slow, but the comparisons, again, are to a non-disabled person using the same machine. We recently acquired some new machines. We're going mobile. These are slightly smaller. They're like, I think, 17 by 17 and about 30 inches tall. They have the capacity to shred up to 20 pages at a time and about 11 or 12 batches per minute, and you don't have to deal with paper clips, staples, or CDs.
And how many shredding machines do you have?
We have 4 of the old and 4 of the new. Compared to the trucks that you see floating around, we're really slow.
And yeah, one last follow-up. How many hours at a time do these folks work in the shredding?
It's varied. I think you'll find that the customary shift in the DD field and I apologize, I keep forgetting to reply to the chairman and vice chair, but the customary shift in the DD field is on the order of 4 hours. Because of some recent rate changes, the state is in some ways now encouraging that be 5 hours. In our facility, on the shredding situation, everybody takes a very big break, sort of in the middle. And when we have sufficient paper to keep people busy, they're probably doing it for a total of about 3 to 3.5 hours per day.
Other questions? All right, Nikki, go ahead.